there's a saying, if you're uncomfortable, that means you're learning something. If you fail, that also means that you're learning something new or you're doing something that you haven't done before. And that is going to lead to success. You have to try different things. You have to be willing to fail. And this is me giving a pep talk to myself. You have to be willing to fail, and the world is not going to fall apart.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're highlighting all of the fun skills and bits that data professionals can leverage in their careers. And of course, we always include fun bits because we're all nerds here and we love to have fun. So with us today, we have Sonali Kumar. How are you today?
I'm good, Monica. Thank you so much for having me today. It's really fun. I love the
Absolutely.
intro.
Oh, thank you so much. I had a really fun time picking out the music.
I can tell, and you picked the right one too, because it really gets you going.
Thank you. So, we start out our episodes by understanding people's origin stories. So, if you could, please tell us about your background and how you got to where you are today in your career.
Ooh, let's see how we can summarize the intro story, the origin story, I should say. I started my career, or at least I thought I'd start my career in criminal justice. That's what I studied in college, and I wanted to go be an advocate. So my route was I'm gonna get a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I'll go work at a local department, like a local sheriff's office or something along those lines, and then I'll go work for the FBI and then the UN. All of that just left and just went out the window after I did an internship, and I'm just like, I cannot do this. I can't even imagine myself holding a gun. What am I thinking? What was I thinking? And those are probably the things that you would consider like when you pick a career or pick a major, but I don't think I considered that option or that being a possibility up until I was into my senior year in college. I needed one class to graduate, and I did not know I had an option to do a double major. I'm also like a first gen college student for my family. We're all immigrants here, so not knowing how the school system worked did not really work in my favor. But I'm like, okay, I got one more class. I guess I have to finish this degree, and that's my only option, and make something work and figure out what I'm going to do after graduation. So I graduated with a criminal justice, did not know networking was a thing, did not know that you had to go talk to professionals, and then you don't just apply to a job and get it. That's not how it works, and I didn't know that. So getting to where I am right now, it was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of tears, a lot of nights where I just had to cry myself to sleep. I'm like, it's gonna be okay, you'll be fine, you'll find something. So how I got to where I am right now, I think it came from a lot of self exploration. After I knew that I didn't want to do criminal justice, I decided to just get any job because it took me such a long time to even get a job. So I was working minimum wage at a call center locally, just taking calls and then doing sales. So that's how I got exposed to sales, which was fun for a bit. And then I'm like, this is not what I want to do. I can't take calls all the time. I don't want to do this. What do I do? And one thing I will say, I always talked to people, even if I didn't see it as networking. I just always wanted to learn, like, oh, what do you do? Do you like it? What part do you like? Right? Just having casual conversations. After working in a call center, decided to go back to grad school because that's what you do when you don't know what you want to do. I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't do that. But I went back because I had an opportunity to do a graduate assistantship, so my graduate degree would have been free. I decided to do like a short certification program instead of a master's degree in counseling. And while I did that, realized I don't want to be a counselor either. And I think it was a good realization because it also drifted me away from like a social service careers, a lot of careers that I always had in mind, and it pushed me to think beyond and look into different career opportunities that I didn't know existed. So I remember spending maybe almost every single day when I was doing that, when I was still in college, in the career center because it's free. Why not? And talking to people and like figuring out what are my skill sets, what am I actually good at, what are some things that I can learn. And what fit me was HR, and I decided to look into different roles within HR, leverage my current role, and learn transferable skills that I can apply when I'm applying for jobs because I didn't want to have to go through what I went through after my bachelor's. Um, though I still went through that. I graduated and now pursuing or trying to pursue an HR career. I remember applying to so many roles, still not getting anything, and I landed a contract role as a recruiter. I did not do recruiting. It was just called being a recruiter. And it was supposed to be like a month or two long of a contract. Did that. That came to an end. And I started applying for jobs again. I'm like, I need something. Fast forward, now it's 2020. And I decided I am going to do one networking call per month. I did not care about how many people I had to reach out to. I did not care about hitting a certain amount of people that I need to talk to per month. I'm like, I just need to make one quality connection per month. I was focused more on quality than the quantity of people I met. And my luck, I came across someone within HR who works in HR in January, had that connection. And the timeline is important. That's why I'm highlighting January 2020. I made that connection, and he happened to work at the organization that I will get hired in a couple months, right? Fast forward, right? I had that call. I went home and researched the company he had talked about, and they had an opening. I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, the company that you mentioned or used to work at has an opening. Like, what do you think? Would it be a good fit? Because he used to be in the same role. And I applied for the job. It was called HR coordinator. And that would have been my first exposure to a data analytics role. And I got hired not knowing what the hell it meant. All I knew was, oh, it's an HR coordinator, so I'll do admin work and just slowly grow into the company. I remember being in that interview, and my hiring manager at the moment did not know it was a hiring manager because I just didn't know what it meant either. And I'm going through the interview process, and I remember sitting into that interview, and she asked me, hey, have you used Excel? And I'm like, yeah, to do like sums and subtractions and averages. That's what I've used it for. And I did a research project when I was in college, and I captured data in Excel and created like pretty charts. Did not know it was a data analytics. And then she's like, oh, do you know how to use VLOOKUPs or power pivots? And I'm like, or even just pivot tables. I'm like, no, I don't know what that is. Obviously, that's not how I answered. I told her, like, oh, I'm a fast learner and I can learn, and this is something that I can probably look into and apply it in the role. But at the moment, I don't really know what that means. Um, I remember going home after that interview and just researching, like, what the hell is a VLOOKUP? What is how to create a pivot table in Excel? And I completed a LinkedIn course on both of those subjects, and I emailed back the interviewer. I'm like, I told you, like, I don't know this, but I just completed this course. So I do have a, foundation on how these applications can be used in Excel. And once I'm hired, I will pick it up, right? And fast forward, probably the next day, I got the job. So I think one of the biggest contributor there was the fact that the willingness to learn something that I did not know versus me saying, well, I don't know, and just stopping right there. But again, the reason why I say that is because that was the first time I had stepped into this world that I didn't even know existed, which was data analytics. So I worked as an HR coordinator doing data analytics work. And a year into that, I was still doing networking calls within the company or even outside the company, just learning about different professions because I was not committed to anything yet. I'm like, I'm still new. I might not like it in a year. So a year into that, I made the conscious effort and the decision to be like, I enjoy this field. Here are some reasons why I enjoy it, and how can I get better at it? And I decided to upskill, started looking to different careers into, with data analytics and HR analytics and people analytics came up when I was doing my research, and decided to do upskill and share my journey on LinkedIn. And that's how I say I ended up in my current role, because I had a recruiter reach out to me saying, hey, I see you have such and such skill set, would be a great a great opportunity and this is what we have available. You have skill sets to work here. Would you like to interview? And it was someone from Nike. And I'm like, this is a scam. So I stalked their profile saying, oh, it's not a scam. They actually work there. So I decided to take the interview, not realizing that I would want the job or, would even want to pursue it. But I spoke to the hiring manager, their director, had some interviews, and I'm like, I think I can do this, let's do it. And after those interviews, I received my offer and I'm like, wow, this is actually happening. And I can tell you, probably a couple months into my role, I did not realize I was still working there. I'm like, I'm going to get fired any minute. It's been a year now. I'm not fired, which is good. So thank you to everyone who's kept me on board. But yeah, that was a very long-winded answer to where I am right now and how I got here.
I love it. There's so much good stuff in there. It seems that along the way, you learned that you need to do research and networking before you kind of just jump into something. That way, you have an understanding
Yep.
of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. I'm gonna add one thing on that because I do this. Don't do research to the point where you paralyze yourself with fear that you're not going to get to the next point. I've done that. I almost did that with my current job. I almost didn't take it because I did not think I would be good enough to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having that conversation with a couple of my coworkers after I had started saying, I'm like, I still can't figure out why you guys hired me. And of course, I didn't ask that to my manager, but I had a conversation with my coworker saying, I don't know why I'm here. I don't see the value that I bring to the table. Like, why me, right? Because I was doing research into people who've been into the career for like 5, 10, 15 years. Obviously, if I'm comparing myself to people who have been here longer, I'm not gonna measure up.
Mm-hmm.
But do your research, but don't let it paralyze you. Like use it as, leverage the research to get to where you want to be and realize that it's going to take time and patience and a lot of failures too. So it's okay.
Yes. I think that's called analysis paralysis.
Yep.
Yes, I
We
have
all
definitely
face it.
experienced that before.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think also something that you highlighted in with your research and also networking is to not compare yourself to those that have been in a career for so many years, but maybe ask them if you have the opportunity to tell you what their experience was when they first started out.
I think that's actually huge, right? Because instead of comparing yourself to people where they are in their journey, 15 years into a career, you ask them, what was it like when you started? What were some things that you went through when you started? Because at that point, you can relate, right? And you can figure out that you're not the only one going through this.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to so many professions who've been into this career who are like well known, especially in the data space. And they will all tell you, like, and this was the most comforting thing when I was upscaling, people saying, I still have to Google stuff. I still have to go look up because I can't memorize everything. And people who have great success into the field saying, like, I'm still learning. I'm still not an expert in certain fields. I don't know everything. And that imposter syndrome, too, that still comes up for people. And you have to figure out how to address that for yourself because it's not going to look the
Mm-hmm.
same for everyone.
Exactly.
I'm still learning that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I Google things on a daily basis, several times a day, because who can remember everything? Nobody can remember everything, and there's also something that you don't know. You don't know that you don't know it either.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's why I say like it's gonna come with failure, and this is something I'm trying to accept. It's so easy to say, and I'm gonna acknowledge that. So as I'm saying it, it's easy, does not mean I implement it in my life as of right now successfully. I try to, but it's all gonna come with failure, right? And there's a saying, if you're uncomfortable, that means you're learning something. If you fail, that also means that you're learning something new or you're doing something that you haven't done before. And that is going to lead to success. You have to try different things. You have to be willing to fail. And this is me giving a pep talk to myself. You have to be willing to fail, and the world is not going to fall apart just because you failed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah.
And I love that in your experience, you applied for a tech role without knowing that it was a tech role and you got the position.
It's funny because that specific role is, again, it was a very entry level coordinator role. I don't think the way it was advertised, it was not advertised as a technical role. It was advertised as a support role to a technical team. And not knowing what data analytics meant, I'm like, oh, it's just another HR team. How hard can it be? Until I
Mm-hmm.
got into that interview and then being asked those two technical questions, which was just related to Excel. And people don't, I don't think people realize that I did not know how to use Excel even in college because I didn't have to use it. My degree was liberal arts. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember using Excel throughout my college journey, and I was in college for 45 years. I used it for a research project, independent research project that I took on. Apart from that, no exposure whatsoever, right? And my first actual data entry or data exploration, anything related to data was when I got hired into the role. And I'm so thankful to my manager who said yes to hiring me despite knowing that I did not know how to do VLOOKUPs. And I'm giving that example because that stuck out to me. And I had to go learn. And it was actually really fun because she taught me so much and that I still apply 3 years down the road. And I'm still building on that fundamental knowledge that she decided to give me. So people say that you only need one yes. It's true. You only need one yes, one person to
Mm-hmm.
believe you because it's true.
Yeah.
It's happened.
Yeah. And you've already mentioned a little bit about soft skills, but I want to deep dive
Mm,
here because a lot of folks not ignore soft skills, but they don't talk about soft skills as much as I think that they should be talked about because they're the harder ones to learn and the ones that actually highlight your abilities just as an
mm.
awesome professional.
Yeah. I love how I've seen so many individuals lately highlight the importance of soft skills, saying you can learn every single coding that there is to learn. You can learn Python, you can learn SQL, you can learn how to create the best data visualization possible, right? If you can't share what you have discovered when you're analyzing your data in a proper way, all that work that you just put in is trash. For lack of a better word, just trash, because it's not going to be useful if you can't communicate to your stakeholders what your findings were. If you can't have a conversation, if you can't build those rapports with your stakeholders, you're going to keep hitting a wall that you don't even realize, right? You're just going to keep walking in circles or just keep walking into a wall and you just don't know where to go from there because you don't have that soft skills, aka communications, or that rapport that you would be building with your stakeholders to take you to the next level, to take your work to the next level, and even get promoted within the company. But yeah, like I don't think I would be where I am right now if it wasn't for soft skills. I did not care, and I know that's a very strong statement. I did not care for technology. I did not even want to pursue a career in tech. It was one of my friends who works as a software engineer, and we went to college together. And I remember having a conversation with him and just, the pay, the benefits that comes from tech, and just advancing at a tech company looks very different from advancing at a non-tech company. And I will I will openly admit money is definitely one of the biggest factors why I decided I'm like, yep, I want to do it. I will pursue it. And I was working in a technical role just without realizing I was working in a technical role too. So I give a lot of credit to that friend for pushing me into the tech field and making me do that research. Like, just look into it. This is what he said. Like, just look into it. I don't care if you pursue it or not. Just look into it because I was stuck in this mindset that I need to learn how to code in order to break into tech, in order to work into tech, right? And when I say code, I'm talking about like Java, Python. I don't know how to use Python yet. I will probably get there, and I still work for a very, very good company, right? Without knowing how to use Python. And I am speaking from experience 2 years from today. So I don't know what the job market looks like right now. If I were to go look for a new role, whether or not I would get it based on my current skill set. But what it was 2 years ago or even a year ago, I focused more on soft skill versus the hard skill, aka technical skills, because again, that's what got me here. Because I use those skills to network. I use those skills to communicate what I actually know while I'm in job interviews, right? And I use those skills to build that rapport with my stakeholders where they can come to me with issues and it's not like we're having arguments. It's more of like we're having an open discussion to figure out what our pain points are, my pain points or their pain points, and they feel heard, they feel seen. Therefore, they would want to work with me and continue to want to work with me in the future too. And I think that gets overlooked, especially for people who are pivoting into this field because we're so focused on doing technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see why, because that's all people talk about and that's all people teach. So you just automatically think, oh, that's the only thing that matters, right? As soon as I learn how to use Python, I'm going to be golden. It might be the case, but you still, again, to grow the career, you still need to focus on the communication skills.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, to dive a little bit deeper into these soft skills and talking about things that people don't usually talk about, I want to transition into our fun bits at this point.
Yay.
So, you just recently started a podcast and you are highlighting all of the topics that people don't typically talk about. Is that right? Can you go over
Yes.
your podcast?
I would love to. I started this podcast for a very selfish reason. So I will go into what that is and why I started it again. The podcast is called Success Beyond Our Greatest Fears. The reason why I started it is because I am someone, and it's hinting to what we spoke about in the beginning, is I have a lot of fears that I hold on to. Fear of failing, fear of looking like an idiot in front of so many people. Don't want to do that. And maybe sometimes even fear of success, what comes with it, because it's a huge responsibility to be successful because you have to be able to maintain it and keep going. There's so many different fears too. Obviously, fear of heights, but that does not apply right now. And spiders. But the reason why I started that podcast is because of all these things that keep coming up for me and imposter syndrome because, oh, I'm not good enough. That's a consistent thought that I have to battle on my own and remind myself that I am, I'm good where I'm at. And even if I'm working towards a goal and I lack some skill sets, that does not mean I'm not quote unquote good enough, right? Um, that's one of the reasons, again, I started that podcast was one, to challenge myself because interviewing people, like well-known people, and sitting down with them to have the most vulnerable conversations that they can have with you and putting that out for other people to see, that's scary for me. Putting myself out there is still scary for me. Even if I post on LinkedIn, every single time I have to publish something, I have to convince myself that, again, the world's not going to fall apart. So all that tying into why I started this podcast and realizing that most of the times when you go on social media, you're looking at the highlights, you're looking at the success, right, of all these people, and you're consistently going to the comparison loop saying, shit, they got there so quickly, and I'm not even close to where they're at. And they make it look so easy. And having those conversations with the same people that you see saying, oh my God, they're so successful. They have nothing to fear. They have no hurdles that they had to overcome. And in the back, I'm having these conversations where people are sharing, like, I still struggle, right? I still struggle to tell myself that I am good enough. And I still struggle with my imposter syndrome and trying to overcome that. And I'm using the podcast conversations to highlight those vulnerabilities and highlight those areas that it's okay to be afraid. You just need to take the action to get to where you want to be. Because fear is just not going to be like, it's gone. Sadly, it doesn't disappear. You just learn how to face it better if you consistently try to challenge it. But yeah, that was a long-winded answer to the podcast.
I love it.
Thanks.
How long have you had the podcast for?
Oh, started it. I started the idea in July or August. I did not start interviewing people up until September.
Mhm.
I've done some interviews that I'm in the process of video editing, which is another thing that I'm learning how to do. It is not easy. Those who create content, do video editing, audio, all that stuff. Kudos to you. It looks easy, but it's not. You could
I
not
would
realize
agree.
how much time people have to spend editing one video and getting rid of like tiny little details. And you have to make sure things flow and the transition stuff. Oh my goodness. Shout out to all the video editors out there. Great
Yeah.
job.
So, talking about learning new things, no matter
Mm.
what you're learning, whether it be technical skills or
Mhm.
editing skills, right? What are your go to resources when you're learning new things?
I think it depends what I'm learning, right? Um, Mostly people.
Hmm.
I reach out to people. For me, I get excited about different things, especially if it's so new to me. I get really excited to the point I'm like, "Oh, I want to try." And in back of my head, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna try it once. I'm gonna be so good at it too, right?" Delusional, completely delusional, but it works. My best resources is talking to people, and I'm not saying talking to people saying like, "Oh, I'm interested in this field. Tell me what you do." That's not what I'm saying. Don't do that. I'm referring to mostly that research component, right? Do your research. You're excited about something, do your research, what it looks like, and then start chatting with people who are in that field saying, what is it like? Right? What is it like to do the work that you do? What does your day-to-day look like? And then see, is that even exciting? Is that still exciting to me to learn this thing? If so, then go down that rabbit hole. Go YouTube, searching, practicing. I think how I learn is practice. If I don't do it, I will watch videos and videos and videos. If I don't do it, next day I wake up, it's like I never learned anything.
Mm.
Currently, this is so random. I'm learning how to knit, and I'm learning that because my mom loves to knit. So I'm using it as a way to spend more time with her, and I'm forcing her to teach me. So when we were growing up, she used to be our tutor. So like I would bring homework, and then she would like be the tutor to get help us throughout the homework, especially when we're getting stuck. And Indian parents are very strict when it comes to your grades. So that strictness kicked in when she was teaching me how to knit because I kept getting stuck on the same thing. And then she's like, "How do you not understand this? I'm teaching you what to do." And then she would point every single detail. She's like, "This is where you do this. This is how you turn your hand." And I'm like, "Hey, mom, you got it." It helped because after that session, I actually learned what I was doing. But to tie it back to the point, it's all about learning by doing. I tried watching videos on knitting and I'm like, this will stick with me. And then 10 minutes later, I'm trying to do it without the video. I'm like, I already forgot. So
Yeah.
practice, practice, practice. That's what helps me at least retain the information, not just know what it is. And
Hmm.
I use similar, going back to technical skills, I used a similar strategy when I was learning how to do SQL. I remember finding very, very popular Danny Moss 8-week SQL challenge. I found that before I even found any courses on SQL or any videos on SQL. Like I'm gonna solve all these problems and I'm gonna do it in one day. You know, again, delusional, not realistic. So I started doing these problems, but I did it from a approach that I'm solving a problem. I break it down, translate it into English language, right? It's in English. I'm just saying less mathematics. So I would go ahead and look at SQL tutorials afterwards saying, oh, this is a concept that I can use to solve this problem. And I would go back to the same problem a week later. So I'd start the problems, find new concepts that I'm using. After I'm finished working on those problems, I'll do more research on those concepts that I just learned. Next week, I will revisit the same problem, figure out a better way to solve the same problem. That was really helpful because one, it was helping me learn how to review a code and how to improve it. And two, I was retaining the information that I just learned last week. So that was a really effective strategy. I will definitely tell people to use.
I like that a lot. Did you leave yourself comments so that when you went back to review, you knew what was going on?
I created a Google Docs, and I
Okay.
will give a shout out to Kadisha Bryan, because she joined me in this. So we would solve same problems, Google Docs, created a table. This is the problem in one cell would say, this is the problem that we're solving. And then we had two columns, one Sonali and one Kadisha. And I think there were more people, I can't remember. But I would put how I solved the problem. I would write mine. And then it was a Google Docs again, shared, right? So she would write her code on what she used to solve the problem. So we'll review it, like my code, her code is the same. If so, like, why did we use that? And then if it's different, it's more of having this conversation like, oh, why did you use that? Why did I, and then explaining why did I use this code to get to this problem. So that was helpful. And if I was doing it on my own, similar process, Google Docs, a table, same problem. Here's how I solved it. And going back the week later with new concepts, here's how I solve it now. Sometimes the answer doesn't change, right? Because there's the way you solved it first, it was good. You didn't have to make any changes. And yes, I would leave comments like, this is shit. This did not work. Come back later. Of
Only the most helpful comments.
course, yes. Because
Yeah.
I knew, I'm like, well, this did not work. So, and then sometimes it's like you keep getting stuck, and having a community of people that you can reach out to. This is where LinkedIn came in handy, and the groups that I had joined on Discord came in handy, saying, this is how I'm solving it, and I cannot figure out what's wrong because I'm not getting the right answers. And, having people that you can go to reflect on your work and analyzing it, like, oh, this is off, that maybe this is the column that you need to use, or try doing this, try doing that. And I think that was really helpful, because if it wasn't for the community, I would have probably left or quit learning SQL probably a week into it.
Yeah, I think having a community is huge.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge benefit.
Yep.
Do you have any final words of encouragement or recommendations for the listeners?
Be patient with yourself, no matter what it is that you're trying to learn, even if it's like you trying to pivot into a new career. Be patient with yourself. And I'm saying this because I look back at the Sonali after graduation who could not find a job, and to the Sonali who I am right now, to say if I lost a job, I'd be okay. And I say this from a place of privilege too, in terms of when it comes to finances. Like, I'm not going to, I live at home, so I'm not going to lose my house, right? So I know not everyone else has this privilege, but so I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming from that place of privilege. Like, I'm not worried if I do lose my job as of right now, because I know a lot of people go through layoffs, and that's a very stressful experience on its own. But even then, I was not going to lose a house, because I was still living at home, and I was looking for a job. And I just remember beating myself up for not having a job and completely ignoring every other aspect of my life. All that mattered was, I need to get a job. I need to get a job. And that's how I'm going to be worthy to be respected or anything, right? And my workouts didn't matter. Me going out of my way to take care of myself didn't matter. All mattered was, how many job applications did I apply to? Did I get an interview? Am I getting hired? That's all that matters. And it was awful, 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 awful. Because I was crying. Like, I was so, so sad. But to the point now, I'm just like, it's gonna be okay. Again, the world will not fall apart. Apparently, that's my go-to line. The world will not fall apart if I lose my job right now. It will be difficult, but eventually things will work out. So learning how to be patient with yourself. And I'm gonna quote one of my mentors, all my mentors. They would tell me every time I job search, they would tell me, it's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. You're fine, you're skillful, so on and so forth. I'm like, if that's true, why do I not have a job? This is not something I would say to them, but like in my head, I'm like, why are you lying to me? Why are you trying to make me feel better? And I would consistently, throw that comfort away, saying like, oh, I don't deserve to feel comfortable, or I don't deserve to be comforted by anyone because my job is everything. And now I advocate like, no, a job is just a part of life. It's not your life, and learn to treat it that way so you don't lose value, you don't lose your self-worth, and you don't lose yourself just because you lost a job. Yeah. Be patient and just realize job's not everything. Again, coming from a place of privilege.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sonali, for coming and sharing all of these wonderful tips, tricks,
Yeah.
and all of this. If any of the audience has questions for you, where can they find and or follow you?
Ooh. You can follow me on LinkedIn with questions. I have 2 weeks of backlog in answering my DMs, probably longer than that now, but definitely LinkedIn. That's the first place I would recommend for people to follow me, or just to check out the content that I've shared in the past and will be sharing in the future. And of course, to support the podcast, those wonderful conversations, I would recommend following me on YouTube and other podcast platforms.
Awesome.
And this has been really fun. So I appreciate you having me here too, Monica.
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Of course.
And as always, folks, happy learning.
Bye, folks.